This screencast will give you a little bit of background on the German unification in the 19th century, which is arguably the most important event of the 19th century. We'll go through it rather quickly because we're going to spend a little bit more detail on this in debate and in some discussion in class. Key question here, and this is a great example of the kind of IB examination questions that you might have to get used to, is to what extent was German unification solely the result of Bismarck's efforts? This is very much related as well to the topics we've been talking about on our forum related to the great man theory of history, which we also talked about in relation to Italy. Were these movements, these great unification movements, were they solely the result of individuals' effects on history? Now, some key things that we have to really sort of understand in terms of the significance of this and in terms of the direction of German unification. Italy is generally believed by historians to be unification from below, meaning the masses pushed the key individuals toward taking the actions that they did. To the extent to which this is true is however, fairly debatable. Germany's unification, by contrast, is often widely believed unification from above, meaning that it was key aristocratic or very powerful men that led Germany toward unification. And it's important to realize here as well that some historians don't even believe really that Germany was unified, rather that all these several German states were simply annexed under Prussian leadership. And so a lot of controversy still remains in terms of German unification amongst historians. The key thing here to remember, however, is as we look at this map of the German Reich, or the German Empire, as it was from 1871 to 1918 after unification had been completed, you'll see here that there were at the time, we're talking here at the end of the Napoleonic Wars anyway, literally hundreds of small principalities, small states, some led by princes or warlords or kings, the biggest of them being Prussia in the east, and which also gained a fair bit of territory here in the west, which was a bit of a gift for their participation against Napoleon. This just happened to be some of the richest coal and iron deposits in Europe, and led directly to the great power and industrial might that Germany would later have. The other key states were in the south, on the border of Austria, which was Bavaria, which, though German-speaking, was Catholic, much like its Austrian neighbor. It's important to realize here that both Austria and Germany were both German-speaking, and that there was some questioning in the early 1800s of whether or not all these German states would be unified, and if they were, would they be unified under the Habsburgs in Austria, or would they be unified under the Prussians in what is now the eastern part, actually what now today is Poland. So we see here the German Confederation as it was created after Napoleonic Wars. This was just a loose confederation largely dominated by Prussia, but not under the control of a single government. You can see the small parts that later on joined Prussia, particularly Saxony and Mecklenburg and some of these other states. Other parts of it, such as Schleswig, Holstein, and Hanover, these were states that were annexed by Prussia through war. So if we consider what Germany was like before 1848, when there was revolutions, failed nationalist revolutions across Europe, we have to realize that this nationalist ideology was very common amongst the urban and middle class, but it was not widely popular. Keeping the German states divided was the main foreign policy goal of France and Russia, because they did not want to see Prussia or any other German state become very strong in the heart of Europe. Germans themselves, though, were increasingly dissatisfied with their minor power role and wanted to play a greater role. And national sentiment became very, very popular during the Napoleonic Wars, sort of a German feeling that they were different, they were superior, they were destined to be great. And German philosophy seemed to emphasize this.